Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here and to share some more insight on the project called HEAVENN. But I am called Deborah Goeree, which is a really Dutch surname, so I won't ask you to teach it with me. But yes, today, so I will tell you more about the HEAVENN and not so much about my surname. HEAVENN, already explained. Thank you, Peter, for your already short introduction on HEAVENN Valleys, and several projects are already ongoing, one of which is HEAVENN. A little bit of my background: I work at New Energy Coalition, and we are much more focused on also on education, but also research in terms of energy projects. We help businesses, educational institutions, but also companies and entrepreneurs in the energy transition to make steps forward, help them to write project proposals, execute them. So one of them is HEAVENN. My colleague Patrick Knobben was involved there. And now we are responsible for the project management of HEAVENN, which is quite a lot of fun, interesting, challenging every day, but I will walk you through the project with me. So HEAVENN indeed is called, today I will tell a bit about the HEAVENN project, why it's in the northern part of the Netherlands, which is interesting to see why these several elements make it a really great hydrogen valley as an example. The structure of the project, clusters, work packages, of course, but also as we are already some years in the project, some lessons learned, but also some best practices that hopefully you can help or add to your current projects or new project proposals that you are writing. So indeed, this acronym is Made in HEAVENN. It's indeed a hydrogen energy applications for valley environments in the northern part of the Netherlands. So we are combining 11 hydrogen projects in the northern part of the Netherlands together within HEAVENN to showcase the production, the transport, the end use of hydrogen within the northern part, in the northern region of the Netherlands. So where are we located? I think all of you know where the Netherlands is, but the northern part of the Netherlands, this is the spot that we are talking about. Groningen, for example. This is good to know because this is where it actually all started. This is the province of Groningen, and what you see in gray is the onshore national gas field, which has been discovered in 1959. And this is one of the biggest onshore gas fields in Europe. So we were really happy, of course. GasUnie, as some of you know, has been tracking a lot of gas here. This is really good, has been really good for our economy, has created a lot of jobs, but also a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of infrastructure that is ready, that can be used, and has been using as well. But if you look closely, the red dots are all the earthquakes that happened due to this fracking. And there are also people living here. So there has been a lot of local resistance from gas fracking. This is really a very hot topic at the moment in the Netherlands. Yesterday, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Mining, they visit Groningen quite a lot because there has been a lot of research, a lot of resistance, a lot of anger because people living here, it's good for the economy, of course, but the people that live there don't really see much of the outcome for themselves. So this is a very hot topic, a very big issue in the province of Groningen. So in 2018, the government has decided to shut down most of the gas fields here, to stop fracking, to stop the earthquakes. But then, of course, the world has changed since. The Ukraine war, COVID, everything has changed our plans of shutting everything down. But it did start a new idea to do something with this infrastructure here, with what is going on here. So there is a lot of knowledge. There are a lot of jobs here. It's good for the economy. There is a lot of infrastructure. So what can you do if everything is going to be shut down? So this is where the first outline of HEAVENN has been started. Okay, how can we maybe transfer it into something that can be a new economy, which is hydrogen? So what we see here is, again, the northern part of the Netherlands, but also it's very close to wind parks. We have very big harbors called Eemshaven, which can be used for building offshore wind parks, but also for import and export for electricity. There are 2 chemical parks there that can be used for hydrogen. There's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of knowledge. So these are all elements that we thought are really interesting and useful for building this hydrogen valley. So the goal within HEAVENN is to, as I was saying already, integrate a more green hydrogen infrastructure in terms of production, transport, end use, research also, and also replication, because to be honest, sometimes we forget that HEAVENN is such a famous project that we are already starting, but it's really, we are really focusing strong on more knowledge exchange, replication, how can this also be used in other sectors and regions. So we are really happy. The Green Hydrogen Partnership has also awarded us with a Hydrogen Valley Year Award last year. And just a bit of, for your terms, financial scope is around 85, 95 million for the project. So as I was already saying, the main object is hydrogen building hydrogen ecosystems, really focusing on producing, for example, and using the green hydrogen use. This is just a big round, but I want to skip a bit because we have already heard this, and I want to dive a bit more into the project itself. So these are actually the stars or the angels in our HEAVENN project, as you can say. These are partners. There are 34 partners at the moment. You see really big ones. There's Shell, GasUnie, Nobian, ICC, but also smaller parts. We have also universities, entrepreneurs. There's a taxi company. Those are all little elements. There's also a shipping company. Those are all elements or partners that we need to use in this. We need each other to really make this a success. So it's quite a large and big and fun group to work with, really interesting as well. We are supported by a Clean Hydrogen Partnership, but also funding comes from the province of Groningen, where we are located, also the other province, Drenthe. And we're also working, of course, in close contact with the national government for funding as well. So a bit of the HEAVENN structure. We have like around 7 work packages, but we structured it in 4 clusters where everything is happening. So this is, I don't know if everyone can see this, but this is how we try to make an outline of everything that's happening in the HEAVENN project. So I'll try to walk you a bit through it and then go into detail in each cluster as well. So where it starts, of course, we need electricity to make the hydrogen. So we start in the harbor, as you can remember from the picture, where there are offshore wind parks. Electricity comes to the harbor, and there's a big electrolyzer at ENGIE that is transferring the electricity to other partners to make a so-called hydrogen hub, where they produce a hydrogen that can be used to transport in trailers to other companies, or for the vessel that I will explain a bit later to transport salt from the up top of the Netherlands to the south. What else do we have here? There's a pipeline going from the harbor from GasUnie to the other parts that need the hydrogen or the electricity as well. So that's cluster 1, that's more focused on the industrial area and industrial infrastructure. Then in the second cluster, there we have, it's more focused on the building environment. So we have the municipality of Groningen and the municipality of Hoogeveen that are having pilot projects to see, okay, can we maybe use hydrogen within a building environment? How does this work? What can we learn here? But it's also GasUnie, who has like a big empty salt cavern, and we already know that we can store gas here, but they are doing some pilot projects to see, okay, can we also store hydrogen here? The first pilot projects are really successful, so we are hopeful that by 2026 that we can really use this for hydrogen storage as well. In the third cluster, then we have a big industrial park in Emmen, and there Shell is, they are building an HRS and an electrolyzer to admix the steam from the industrial park with hydrogen. And then in the fourth cluster, mobility, we have cars, we have trucks, we have the shipping, and also building extra HRSs as well. And then those are just the clusters, but then focused on other, or more focused or organized in other work packages. We have focus on replication studies from the universities, but also studies from entrepreneurs and input from other networking companies. So that's really trying to fit everything together to see what we have learned, and then as an outcome and output for others to learn from what we are learning as well in the project. So that's a bit of the outline, then maybe some examples per cluster. So the first cluster, as I mentioned, is more focused on the industrial infrastructure. As I was mentioning, the chemical park in Delfzijl, they are building a hydrogen hub. And in Eemshaven, that's where the electricity comes from for the hydrogen. So one of the examples that we really are proud of is the vessel called Anthony Vessel. And they are rebuilding their vessel for it to be able to, how does it, dive? No, it's more floating. I don't know what's the word for if you are, a ship is not floating, it's, let's say it's transporting salt from the northern part of the Netherlands to the south, but it's not using diesel, it's using hydrogen. So they are transporting the bulk and they are making it fitting for hydrogen containers. At the moment, the hydrogen hub in the chemical park of Delfzijl is not ready yet, so at the moment they are trying to see, okay, how can we make an intermediate solution, swapping or maybe intermediate HRSs on the route for the ship. So hopefully by June this year, the ship will be fully ready to transport the salt from one way to another. Then the second cluster, the building and the environment, as I was mentioning. Here it's more focused on housing and building and heating by hydrogen. But also we have a big data center. They are trying to have some pilots to see, okay, can we maybe be fully dependent on hydrogen, or maybe as a backup to have a fuel cell on hydrogen instead of diesel. So that's really looking promising as well. They are having some discussions there, what's happening and what's possible. As mentioned, we have a big salt cavern storage unit from GasUnie in Zuidwending, and it's also in Groningen. So it has been used before. We know, as I mentioned, we can store gas here. The first pilot projects for storing hydrogen is really promising. And I wasn't, to be honest, I don't know if you know how big these salt caverns can be. I wasn't aware that they can be as high as the Eiffel Tower. So we can store a lot of hydrogen, which is perfect and really needed for, everything that needs to be transferred into hydrogen. So we're really happy that this is looking well. And then, as said, by 2026, we hope that this can really be executed. And then an example in the municipality of Hoogeveen. They are comparing existing housing and new houses to have the heat pumps not on electricity but on hydrogen. So these are pilot projects, and here you can see a tiny house where they are trying to explain this to the people that are going to live in those houses. What you see with these new technologies, but actually with all new technologies, citizen engagement is really a very important part of making a project successful. If the technology is ready, if everything is ready, it can be built. But the people who are going to use it, for example, in these houses, they are not convinced, they are not motivated, they are scared of it, or they don't want it. They can maybe demonstrate, or they can have resistance. It's happening a lot in the Netherlands. So we are trying to, and they are really focused on trying to inform them in the best way possible and have them going on the hydrogen boat, so to say, in terms of technology. And otherwise, it will be a bit sad if this couldn't happen. So it's a good example on how to engage your citizens also within the project. Then the third cluster, HEAVENN Industrial Park, Chemical Industrial Park as well. So here you have GZT, which is a GATEC park, it's called, and they are using steam for all their factories there. And they are trying to see, okay, can we use the electrolyzer to make electricity for the steam, but also then mixing it with hydrogen as well. And then Shell is really involved here. They are building the electrolyzer. And the HRS, together with HasUnie there, HasUnie is building the hydrogen pipeline to transport it in the parts where it's needed. And so here you can see there is a part focused on hydrogen. Also, biodiesel and solar fields are going to be used here to make it really fully green hydrogen ecosystem. But also the HRS is used by Cubus, which is one of the busing companies, also part of the HEAVENN project. They are using hydrogen to fuel their buses, but also big trucks in Emmen can use the hydrogen to fuel their trucks as well. And then the last cluster is a mobility cluster. As I said before, it's focused more on the cars, trucks, vans, also the municipality vans for using garbage as well, and public transport, but also the shipping. So one of the examples is an HRS on the airport Eelde. It's a small airport in the province of Groningen. And we are trying to see, can we maybe mix it a bit with hydrogen, but also with sustainable aviation. This is a new project, not fully part of HEAVENN, but it's good to have it as a side project, as a pilot, to see what's possible here. Then the work package 4, 5, and 6. The 4 work package is really interesting for us as well. Now that we see that each project, after some years, is finally getting along, because we had some, I think every one of you has had some problems, maybe delays due to COVID. We had this as well, so now we see each project is really getting in the first phase of executing their projects, that we can collect all the data that is needed to see, okay, what is really happening here, what do we see here, but also can we share this knowledge with other partners as well, and can we also learn from this. Then in work package 5, all the information comes together. Oh, sorry, I see that I have to run up a bit. So everything comes together, really focused on replication. Work package 6 is more on the research studies that we need in the project. So that's happening here. Some study from ENGIE on the 100 megawatt electrolyzer that they are going to build on the industrial park in Eemshaven. I will skip this, but maybe some lessons learned just to close off from the HEAVENN project. We are already starting, but there are still some issues that we are facing as well. It's a very new technology, or new market, so there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of changes as well. Also some how do you say this? Unforeseen some circumstances, of course, COVID, of course the war with Ukraine hasn't really helped. Co-financing is still something that's ongoing in the project that we are facing, that we need some clear agreements in the consortium agreement. Although they were already going along, some changes still are happening, or some things are still not clear. So we're in close contact with the Clean Hydrogen Partnership for this as well. So those are some issues that we are facing. Yesterday we had a call from one of the bus companies that's part of the HEAVENN project. They were saying, okay, we see we have already done some pilots in terms of using hydrogen for the buses, and we see it's not really, it's not helping, it's not really going the way we want to do. So our partners, or our strategic partners, have decided to step out of the project, because we see that the battery technology has developed more in the last few years. So we're focusing more on this technology instead of hydrogen. So those things are happening as well. In the end, we are also all trying to work towards a more green economy. So actually it's a good thing, but it's sad, of course, they are not part of HEAVENN anymore. Some best practices in HEAVENN, and then I will close off my presentation. We see that's really nice to see that we have bigger partners that are working in the project, but also the smaller ones. So the bigger partners, they can make the big steps and help motivate the others, also in terms of financing, but also the smaller, more flexible entrepreneurs, they are also able to make changes within their company very fast. So that's good to know. We have a clear project structure for the clusters and work package, so that's really helping us to manage it as well. Being one of the first and biggest valleys, sometimes we forget it as well, but it's really good to have this, the lessons learned shared with you today. And of course, we are always learning, teaching, but also today I'm really eager to learn more from the Highlands regions as well. So with that, I will close off, and thank you very much for your time. And I think that's really my end goal here, to stop here, but thank you very much, and yeah, I will give the floor to you now.
Thank you very much.